Harrington's going to be okay. Unfortunately, it was a little scary there. He landed a little bit awkwardly in the Iowa State game. But it ended up being a pretty mild kind of tweak of the ankle. He was able to work out yesterday, and he'll be good to go, which is great.
And what can you say about his fit both in the offense and defensive schemes?
Yeah, I think you saw kind of first look, especially in the first half. I thought, his activity and his skill level. He's got the ability to play out on the floor. He made a three. He can handle the ball. He can drive it from the perimeter. He's a pretty good passer. Obviously, got to clean up his turnovers a little bit, but then his ability to be a presence in the defensive end too. He had a couple blocks, but we felt like his skill set was really going to complement Nick well, especially, and I think he showed that. With his first half, second half didn't play as well. I think part of that was fatigue, kind of playing that first game, but I think everyone saw from a talent perspective and kind of skill set that he has an opportunity to have a really good role for us.
Coach, is there anything we didn't see against Iowa State in terms of rotations and combinations that you're looking for tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, we played the whole summer and fall with kind of 2 point guards, kind of, having all the reps, so to speak, in football, who gets the reps. So with Jaden Reed and Jake West, both of those guys kind of, got nicked up a week before the game. So it put us in a little bit of a bind, but, those things happen in the season. So I think it was good for us to have to adjust on the fly. Like Jordan Clayton did an awesome job kind of coming in, kind of like he did last year. Hadn't really played much point in the preseason and came out, had no turnovers against that pressure. But I'm expecting Jaden Reed to be able to play a little bit tomorrow. Jake will be not ready to go tomorrow, but hopefully not too far behind. And so I think that was the biggest thing. We didn't have the full complement, so when we get those guys back, we've been working on our pace, our pressure, playing a little bit. And I thought you saw that in stretches in the Iowa State game. We got it up the floor. We got some easy baskets at times. But also the turnovers really hurt us. Right? 17 turnovers. They had 14 steals. And you hope that, you get a couple of your main ball handlers on the floor that can be limited a little bit better.
Coach, obviously you have a ton of younger players on the roster this year. And there can be a tendency for some of those younger players in their first action to try and just be mistake-free. How do you try and balance that while also trying to empower them to be aggressive and take shots?
Yeah, I mean, we've always been offensively. I've always been pretty lenient with our guys in terms of kind of letting it rip. I mean, that's who I was as a player. So a lot of times when I coach, I think back to the way I was coached and what worked with me. And I never want those guys to feel like they're constrained on the offensive end. I mean, what we're sticklers about is defense. Being in the right spot, making sure you have your teammates back with switches, with our post traps, things of that nature. But, I'll live with a bad shot here or there if that'll keep a guy free of mind. And I thought for the most part our guys didn't play tentative. I mean, even like Tre Singleton, I thought he came out and did a lot of the things we wanted to do in terms of handling the ball and making plays and being that versatile guy. I thought Max Green, he got 11 took the most shots coming in as a new guy. I thought those guys did a good job of being free on the offensive end of the floor, and hopefully that'll continue.
With a bit of a deeper group this year, as a coach, how are you adapting to maybe deeper rotations? Yeah, something a little bit unfamiliar for you in recent years.
Yeah, I think it's a learning process. We've kind of always played 8 guys, and now I feel like there's more that can help, and I really do believe that. And time will tell, though. You got to do it in games, right? I mean, the preseason has shown we have more players that can get out there, but I think as we get in the game, the biggest thing that I've stressed to our team is that night to night we got to be okay with the group that's playing well. And I think Michigan State last year was a perfect example. They had 10 guys that kind of played starters minutes, and on a given night it could have been a different group that got it going and they played more, and our guys got to be okay with that. The other night, for instance, like 2 guys who I'm really high on, KJ Wyndham and Justin Mullins, it kind of went in a direction where some other guys got more minutes. Well, tomorrow it could be their night, and some of those other guys that played heavy minutes might be playing 12 minutes or 10 minutes. So we got to be okay with that, and we have to use that to our advantage. And for me as a coach, just learning. I mean, that's why these exhibition games are great. Kind of learning how to sub, playing different lineups. I was able to get Nick's minutes down. I really would want him in the low 30s. He was in the high 30s last year. I think in the low 30s is going to be at his best to be able to finish games. So, those are kind of things we're doing as we're moving along. But then you have injuries. So, I mean, 2 of the guys I anticipated to play didn't play. So that's why you got to have more players just so you can get through the rigors of the season.
You mentioned the possibility of reducing Nick's minutes a little bit, and I think the obvious question that comes from that is when he's on the bench, where a lot of that offense comes from, especially just guys who can create their own shots.
Yeah.
Where do you think that starts with in terms of guys who, when Nick is on the bench, might be?
Yeah, I mean, I think part of it is you didn't really see. I think Jaden Reed has that capability. I think you're going to see when he gets out there, his kind of speed and quickness is a guy that can get into the paint, not only get his own shot, but what that does is it forces help. Now other guys are getting open shots and opportunities from that. I think you saw a sample size of what we feel high about Tre Singleton. I think Tre is a guy that you can play through. He can initiate offense. He can handle the ball. He had a couple really nice moves the other night where he just got his own shot in one-on-one isolation situations. I think Arrington, is a guy inside that from an offensive perspective, he's going to be more offensive minded than we've had at that position, where we can throw it into him in the post and he can create help, he can score, he can get fouled. He shot 8 free throws in the game. So, I think those are, and I think you've seen a guy like KJ Wyndham. I mean, he's been in 20. Max Green was a big scorer at Holy Cross. So, I mean, I can go down the line. I think we have more weapons on the offensive end of the floor, which hopefully will help Nick and not put him in a position where he has to be the key cog at all times, because that wears you out. We saw that a little bit last year. At the end of games, at times he was gassed because he had to carry us in stretches.
You mentioned
This is the first year in quite some time without Brooks Bonheiser. If you could speak to, first of all, the moment you got drafted, some of those emotions for you being with him for 4 years, and just broadly to the impact that he's had on this program as you move beyond.
Yeah, I mean, Brooks is a special guy. He's like a part of my family. He came in with my son, so they're the best of friends. They're like brothers. And, just so happy for him. To me, karma was good with that one because, no one deserved to have more of a special senior year than Brooks. But sports can be unfair sometimes, and what happened to him, he was never healthy. He came into the season hurt. He gutted out, then had a different injury that ended up ending his career, and we never got to see kind of that healthy senior Brooks have that All-American year that he wanted, we all wanted, and how much he loved playing here. So karma was good. The fact that he just stayed the course, he got himself healthy. Not only got drafted, but got drafted to an organization that's a championship organization, where he can play on the best team in the NBA and learn. He's already found his way into the rotation. So he's a special guy. It was a huge thing for our program. I've said all along, there's things you want to eventually be a legitimate program. Obviously, you have to win. And I think we've done a lot of those things. Our final piece was kind of now developing guys to the next level. And to have someone get drafted, hopefully it'll be the sign of many more to come. So just really proud of Brooks. We watch all his games, and I know he's repping Northwestern really proudly up there in the year.
You mentioned Tre. Players make
Yeah. For me, we haven't explored it really with any players, so it's hard for me to really comment because I don't know how it all works. I mean, I just feel like there's not really any rules anymore. So, and even when NCAA does level rules, then they take it to court and the players win. So it's a whole new ball game. It's a new, and you have to adjust. You have to adapt. So never say never. Am I against it? It's something that I don't know how it works. And we saw a big influx of international players, and I think that kind of triggered. If international professional players can play in college, why can't American professional players play in college? And really, it's kind of the same deal. A number of these guys playing in our league were pros overseas, multi-year pros. So it's really no different than a young guy who's playing in the G League. So how it all figures out, I don't know. I know how to coach basketball. I'm not smart enough to do that other stuff. So, but we will always explore the best fits for Northwestern and how we can be better. And it'll be interesting to see where a lot of this goes.
At First Media Day, you mentioned Nick really becoming a leader. I'm curious the how behind it. So how have you kind of seen that part of the aspect grow?
Yeah, just being more vocal. You know, he played with two amazing leaders the last couple of years, and Boo Booey and then Rich Kornheiser. So it's kind of his time, you know. And by nature, that's not really his personality. Nick just wants to go out. He wants to be told what he needs to do and go out there, and he's just going to do it at a high level. But now when you're a senior and you're the best player and eyes are on you from your teammates, and you have to be vocal and you have to hold guys accountable and be the best leader you can be in your own way. And that's what we really pushed him to do. And I'm proud of him, you know, because he's getting out of his comfort zone a little bit with that. But it's going to make him a better player in the long run. And we're still in the process. And he can't lead alone. You know, that's why I'm counting on other guys. Jordan Clayton's a guy who's really stepped up and helped with leadership. A guy like Blake Smith, who's been, you know, a walk-on on our program, but you guys that have followed us has been starter in games. He played a lot in an NCAA tournament games. So we have some veteran guys that have been around that have been able to help him. And I call those guys the culture bearers. So when you have eight new guys, you know, who are going to be the ones that kind of, you know, show and teach the culture of our program. And they've done a really good job so far.
You mentioned Tre, and just the splashes you've seen. How much did it mean getting him into the program, and what kind of impact or role do you think he could have this season?
Oh, it was huge. I mean, Tre was a guy in the recruiting process we identified right away as someone that we just really wanted him in, and you know, the level of recruitment, he kept playing better and better with every event, which made me even more nervous because now you have a lot of the big boy programs wanting him too. But I think it shows kind of who he is. I think we were one of the first ones to kind of really believe in him and show him, you know, what he could be. And we've had, you know, a guy like Brooks is a guy we kind of showed what, you know, a forward who's 6'6", 6'7" guy who could come in, handle the ball, make plays, and post, and have his hands on a big part of the game. And he's come in, he's got great poise. If you saw the game the other day, you know, he doesn't really get rattled emotionally, you know, good or bad. He kind of stays the course. He plays at an even keel. He's got good poise to him, and he's really talented. So he is a freshman, so I always temper that. There's going to be days he looks like a freshman, but there's no question, you guys are already seeing, like, he's going to be a huge part of this year's team, and hopefully the more he plays, the better he'll get.
Coach, Angelo Cheravino got the start against Iowa State. Obviously, he was kind of more of a grit defensive role in his first year, put on that muscle, and on the offensive side looked a lot more comfortable in that Iowa State game. In his this next year, what kind of role? What are your expectations for him to kind of take a leap now with a bigger role?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I just have really stressed to Angelo is just play to your strengths. I mean, you guys, everybody's a role player in some way, shape, or form. And that's not a knock, but what can you bring to the table that can set you apart from the other guys and have the impact that we need you to have on the floor? And I think what he's done is, in this whole preseason, which is why we started him, is he really complements Nick and Tre and even Arrington inside and our point guard. When we get those guys back, he complements the group really well because he's a terrific athlete. He's a hard-nosed defender. He's going to get block shots. He's going to run the floor. He's going to get deflections. He crashes the offensive boards. He's improved as an open shooter. I mean, made 2 out of 3 threes. So I just really want to focus on his strengths, no pun intended, because he's a lot stronger this year, and he's such a great athlete. I mean, he can run. He's explosive. He can get out on the open floor, and just proud of that development. That freshman to sophomore year, that's a big, development stage for a college player. And he got in the gym, he got better, he got stronger, and you're seeing it pay off here early in the season.
Some family ties here with your dad.
Yes.
Or your dad playing at Illinois State. What can you say about your connection to that program?
Yeah, I mean, it was really the reason why we scheduled these guys, in addition to them being very good. I mean, they're the preseason pick to win Missouri Valley. They had 2 first-team preseason guys in that league that are older. Coach Peden's done a great job, but there as a coach and what they're building. But really the big draw for me was the ties with my family. I mean, for me, not only my dad but my mother. They both graduated from Illinois State. Coach Peden reached out to me. I've been around Illinois State my whole life. When I was a little kid and my dad played in the NBA, that's where we went in the summers. When he was playing, we went to Bloomington Normal and we stayed there. And we went to the gym at ISU. I mean, that was my childhood, and that was always the team we cheered for because that was both my parents' alma mater. So, and to see what my dad means. So Coach Peden reached out and we talked about maybe putting this together. We're going to return the game next year, which would be really special for me to bring our team back there. My dad has a statue, the court's named after him. Everything he's meant to that school. So with it being an exhibition game and the level of quality of opponent that they are, and my affinity for that program, it just made a lot of sense. It's going to be great, and it'll be a little bit easier on my old man. That's why we can't play him in the regular season. I don't think he can stomach it. He's his two favorite schools going back and forth, and somebody having to take a loss. So it's better to play an exhibition game. And coming out of it, we'll both get better. Both teams are going to try to win, but the reality is you play these games to try to win, but also learn about your team and get better.
Coach, Phoenix checked into the final few days of exhibition. No run for two. Should we expect to see them a little bit in tomorrow's exhibition, or is it more focused on preparing the next game?
I think both. And nobody's out of the race, for playing time. So it's hard to play 13 guys. It just is. It's almost impossible. I've just told everybody on the roster to stay ready. Be ready when called upon. You never know when your coach is going to say, "Hey, get in there." And both those guys were incredibly high on. We're just in a position right now where we have a lot of veteran guys that kind of are showing them the way, and they're learning and they're getting better. But both those guys' time's coming. They just got to keep working.
In your time here, you've played largely Division II opponents in exhibitions. This year, scheduling 2 Division I opponents, including a power school. What can you just say about the process of trying to play better competition this year in your exhibitions?
Yeah, well, they changed the rule, which was a big part of it. It used to be you could only play a D1 behind closed doors, and we've been doing that with Iowa State the last 4 years. So that's been an ongoing. Now we just turned it into a new rule. We're having fans, and for us, we played some really good Division II opponents. But because you could play D1s, you want to play high-level competition. So for us to be able to play a top 20 team, top 25 team on the road in a great environment like we did against Iowa State, to come home to play a home game against the preseason favorite in the Missouri Valley. Missouri Valley champions won a game in the tournament last year. Drake won a game. So that's a really good league, really good players, really good coaches. To me, there's no better way to get better. And you can have fans in the building. And so you got to perform when the lights are on. It's fine behind closed doors, but there's a difference when the lights are on and the game is going and there's people watching. And so these are unbelievable experiences for our team as we go into next Monday, and we're going to approach it like that.
That exhibition change, is that something coaches were pushing for?
I think it's a combination. I think in a land now of revenue generating, where it's a revenue sharing, probably we can have fans, we can, charge for tickets, and so I think schools really push for it more than the coaches to be. We had 12,000 people the other day at Iowa State, which is a heck of a thing. I hope we can fill Welsh Ryan tomorrow night, and I think that was part of it, as well as just playing better competition. You see it in the NBA, right? In their preseason, they play each other. They have a handful of preseason games. They can look at different things, kind of play different rotations, and it doesn't affect you because once you start the season, you don't get any do-overs. You guys know, we had really good years where you stub your toe a time or two in the preseason, you can really put yourself behind the 8 ball. So, I think having a couple games to be able to look at your teams, get exposed, what you're good at, what you're weak at, before it starts for real is a really good thing. And I think everyone's in favor of.
As far as
learning how to play with the rotation and trial and error, have you spoken to anyone outside the program about how to do it well, or is it mostly trial and error and studying teams like Michigan State?
Yeah, it's trial and error. I'm a basketball nut, so I have a lot of friends in the industry. I watch a lot of basketball. You see a lot of different styles. I've told you guys I'm a big proponent that every team is new. I don't come in there's a certain way that I'd love to play, but sometimes your team doesn't fit that, and I'd love to open the floor and play really fast. But some years you got to play a little bit slower. You got to grind it out. We have our principles that we have defensively that aren't going to change, but I think like this year, I think we have a team, we could play a little bit faster pace, we can get out on the open floor a little bit, hopefully convert turnovers into some easier offensive and not be as deliberate half court. And, but time will tell. Like I said, I mean, and it's trial and error. Like even subbing the other day, I mean, I came into the game kind of thinking, okay, what am I going to do? How many guys am I going to bring in early, and how does that work when I take the first guys out? And you got to think about all those things. So to have another game of doing that, I think will really help me and our staff as we get into the regular season.
In the minutes where Aronson Page was on the court, we saw a lot of Tyler Brown at the 5. Is that something that you as a main plan for the small ball minutes?
Yeah, as well as Nick and Tre together. I think you saw that too. I mean, I think right now, I think that's kind of Tyler. We have high hopes for him. He's going to be really good. He has a lot of international experience. Thought he came in and did some good things. He's also a freshman, so that was his first opportunity. And there's some things that he'll settle into and be better at. But we're expecting him to come in and be a physical presence for us. And he's an offensive guy that can score. He can make a shot. He got 2 quick baskets there when he came in. So I think you'll see him get minutes there, and then I think you'll see us also play Nick a little bit at that spot with Tre, and then you can become really versatile, with some different lineups.
Coach, as far as non-conference regular season scheduling, it seems like a lot of the conversation in the preseason has been, just how hard it is for schools that maybe aren't the elite contender schools every single year to schedule these non-conference games, with everyone just trying to get their strength of schedule up as much as possible. Have you seen, obviously you've turned Northwestern improved from where it was before, but have you had those issues over the last couple of years? Or?
Yeah, now there's a lot of these events now you're seeing in Vegas where they're doing a big event that's NIL based. And so a lot of teams that used to go to Maui and some of these other teams and those Thanksgiving tournaments have kind of gone by the wayside a little bit. Teams are playing more neutral site events. You see, we were able to get into a couple this year. We're in Indianapolis to play Butler as part of a neutral site, here in Chicago on Thanksgiving night, which is going to be a great event with a doubleheader. So we're trying to be creative. I've always felt there's kind of a distinct formula. If you want to be a team to be in postseason relevant, you got to win, but there's kind of a formula that we fit, the amount of high-level games in the non-league versus, kind of mid-major. It's a puzzle you got to put together. It's not easy, and then a lot of these games too, they call them guarantee games, right? So a lot of these lower major, mid-major, they get money to come and play on the road, and everybody's trying to get those teams to come play. So, we get with our schedule. I get with my scheduling team every year and kind of look at it. What kind of team do we think we're going to have? What do we want to take on from a non-conference perspective? But yeah, I know Illinois State Coach Peden talked about it. I really feel for the high-level mid-majors. The high-level Missouri Valleys, maybe some of the A-10s. It's a lot of these Power 4 schools. Are not going to play those teams. They're either going to play another Power 4 or they're going to play, a lower metrics team. And I get that, and it's hard. And but the reality is the metrics are the metrics, and that's what they've used to get in the tournament. So a lot of these teams, that's how they've scheduled. And I feel really good about our schedule. I feel we're going to be really tested. There was a strategy to the whole thing. You don't just throw a schedule together. It's tried to be well thought out. What kind of teams are you playing? Different styles are you playing from different conferences? And I think the non-conference schedule that we have, if we take care of business and win enough, at the end of the day, you got to win. But if we're able to win enough in the non-league, and it'll put us in a position when we get to the Big Ten to have a chance to play in March, and that's all you want for your team.
All right, that'll wrap us up with Coach.
All right, thanks, guys. See you tomorrow.
First time out on the floor at the collegiate level. How did you feel?
It felt good, first time game. Just trying to get it right, I don't know what's right and wrong, so just trying to go out there and get some experience.
What lessons do you think you learned from your first time playing at the collegiate level?
The first big thing I would say is just it's a lot more taxing than I think it was originally intended it to be. It was a lot more up and down, just super tiring overall. Now that I know kind of what to prepare for, what to expect, I think I'll do a better job.
What was it about Northwestern that made you commit here and come and join the program?
I'm sorry.
What was it about Northwestern that made you want to come here? You were highly recruited across the country.
It was really just like the family-like structure here. I feel like on my visit, everybody made me feel super welcome and just like overall like a family, like program. So it felt like I was at home. So that's what did it for me.
What excites you most about playing for Coach Collins?
Just I know he's never gonna lie. He's always gonna shoot me straight and hold me accountable. And I don't want anybody to lie to me. My answer—he's not gonna get me anywhere. So when I was on my visit, I kind of got a taste of that. It was kind of like what like I said, I felt like home. It's kind of what I was used to. So.
Tre, you started in that first game. Coach Collins has talked about, really having high expectations for you, but also, acknowledging that you're a freshman. What are your expectations for yourself this year, and kind of how do you temper those, gauge those? What do you expect out of your season this year?
Coming in, he's talked to me about the expectations he has for me. Freshman or not, it's just a number at the end of the day. Age, it doesn't matter, So I try to come in and just, bring that impact that he's expecting out of me.
What's it been like working with Nick, getting to know Nick just as one of the leaders of this team?
Yeah, it's been great. Obviously he's a great basketball player, but he's an even better person off the court. And, even this far, he's already taught me so much. I'm just very thankful and blessed to have somebody like my team.
What's kind of those main lessons?
Well, one of the biggest things I would say is just how big he is in his faith. He literally he gives everything to the man above. And, I kind of tried to take that on and learn, if I follow it, just like, try and do as much as him as I can do that, I'll be a good unit. So.
The past few years, Northwestern has really become known for what it does defensively and some of the more complicated defensive schemes will throw out as an offense. As a young player coming in, did you feel like there was an adjustment period to learn some of those complicated defensive schemes? Where do you feel like we're on that?
Yeah, absolutely. We kind of ran with something pretty similar to it in my high school, but it's definitely still an adjustment. Just a whole new system, new rules. Getting adjusted to it. It'll come, but it's definitely an adjustment for sure.
On Sunday, we saw some actions with you bringing the ball up the court. How familiar are you with that, and kind of somewhat running an offense?
I've had a little bit of experience in that field, I guess you would say. I typically don't, but I'm more than capable of doing it. That was just our game plan for the game. So he trusted me to do it, and I just went out there and tried my best.
What are some examples of things maybe you've learned from Nick? Obviously, he's been there a while. He's been through this a lot.
Really just, lots of repetitions. His work ethic is really unmatched. I thought I worked hard. I kind of see him working aside. I can be doing way more. Another thing is just recovery. Managing your body. It's going to be a long season, so you can't just go out there, have a game, and then come back the next night, get the gym, try to finish it. You got to take care of your body and just be prepared. Stay progressive. All right, man.
Thank you, Tre.
Yeah, Chris talked about getting more of a leadership role this season. Maybe something you're not super comfortable with. How have you tried to handle that role and then become more comfortable with being a leader?
Yeah, definitely last season when Brooks and Jalen went down, there was kind of a good leeway to this year in the sense of being a leader. I think I've talked about how great it's been having 8 new guys. It's a totally different team, and trying to lead them in the right way and show them our culture and how things are done. It's definitely been difficult for me. I'm generally more introverted, but it's definitely been a good test, and hopefully my leadership can be replicated through this entire year.
Nick, your quote a few weeks ago at media days about how the pre-draft process was humbling and you felt like NBA teams really wanted to see three-point shooting and defense. How do you balance trying to show that to NBA scouts down the line while also maintaining what's been your bread and butter throughout now?
Yeah, our only focus right now is student dreams. I think I'm not even worried about whatever's to come after college right now. Really, I'm just focused on this season. So, yeah, whatever I can do, whether it be shooting 15 layups in the game and not shooting a single three, I don't really care as long as we win.
Nick, without a ton of center depth right now, coach has talked about using you and Tre together in kind of a small ball type of lineup, putting you at the 5. What's that adjustment been like for you just in practice so far, and what's your level of comfortability with, especially you're going to be matched up against some of the big centers in the conference?
Yeah, it's never really been much of an adjustment. You're either a person who can be adaptable or a person that can't be. Part of being coachable is doing what is asked, and that's really all the guys on this team do is just do what's asked. it, then I'm gonna do it.
What have you thought of Tre so far?
Tre?
Tre.
Yeah, I mean, he's really good. I'm gonna let his game speak for itself. You guys saw on Sunday, you know, just how special he could be, and just how good of a kid he is. We're super good friends. You know, we get in the gym a ton on our own together, so it's been a special bond that I've created.
One more. Nick, if you could tell me about the moment that Brooks was drafted and just how happy you are for him making that advancement to the NBA level, and just the overall impact that he's having on the program.
Yeah, I mean, truly I wasn't really surprised about it because I knew as soon as he got back, he was so motivated to, you know, kind of get back to himself and show off what he could do. So I really wasn't surprised. But I was super happy for him. We talk all the time, you know, just about what it's like, what that life is like. He continues to just give me advice on, you know, as he was such a good leader and he was truly a born leader. So he definitely has been a factor of, you know, me growing as a leader this year.
All right, better wrap it up.
Thank you, Nick.